This podcast contains descriptions of violence against children and adult language and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Suffer the Little Children, the podcast giving voices back to the victims of child abuse, murder, and their families. I'm your host, Laine, and this is episode 185, Preventing Childhood Drownings. From time to time, instead of covering an individual child's story, I tackle a broader topic, such as my past episodes about hot car deaths and medical child abuse. While the topic of today's episode doesn't necessarily intersect with that of child abuse and neglect, it definitely intersects with this podcast's purpose, to protect children. For this episode, I spoke with Christi Brown, the executive director of the Judah Brown Project. Christi is a mom who always thought she was protecting her kids from the dangers of water until her 3-year-old son, Judah, died in 2016 from an accidental drowning that happened in the blink of an eye. If you think that could never happen to me, this episode is a must listen. This is one of what I'd call my Hear Me Out episodes. Far too many parents, family members, and caretakers of children of all ages think their child could never die from an accidental drowning because they're just too attentive as a parent to let that happen. Besides, you might think, I never let my children near water without a life jacket or other flotation device. Christi is here to tell you it can happen to anyone. It doesn't just happen to neglectful or negligent parents. That's what Christi and Mark Brown thought on that fateful day, September 26, 2016, when they attended a barbecue at a friend's house with a pool. Christi was within 5 feet of their youngest son, 3-year-old Judah Brown, from the moment she removed his puddle jumper flotation device and dried him off, until, minutes later, she found her precious baby face down in the water just past the pool steps. In under an hour, Judah went from a joyful, curious, and water-loving little boy to a child lying still and silent in pediatric intensive care, fighting for his life in a coma. Tragically, Judah Levi Brown, who was born at 9:15 p.m. on June 10, 2013, died at 9:51 p.m. on September 26, 2016. Christi and her husband Mark have since channeled their grief into advocacy through their work with the Judah Brown Project, a Texas-based 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides life-saving education to families, schools, and other organizations to help prevent children from drowning. Here's my recent conversation with Judah's mom, Christi Brown.
My name is Christi Brown. I am the executive director of Judah Brown Project, and more importantly, I am Judah's mom, and I'm also the mom of 6 other children. My background is in special education. I was a special education teacher before this and a mental health case manager before that.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been working with children for quite a long time, and they are my heart, and so that's a little about me.
That's interesting that you had all that background. It must come in handy a bit, at least with your own kids and being able to help them through the process, because I can only imagine what they've been through.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the mental health background has really, really helped. And, it's interesting because the children, the siblings, they are often the forgotten mourners, is what they're called. And I really wanted to make sure that didn't happen with my children, because I knew they were grieving just as much as me and their dad. And so it was really, really important to me to make sure that they got the help they needed as well. It's important that they know that they can talk about their feelings at any time and that they understand that their grief is important too. So I always want to include them in that and include them as much as they want to be in Judah Brown Project as well.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us Judah's story, just for those who don't know exactly where your organization came from and who he was?
Judah was the youngest of 7, and he is the youngest of 7. I don't like using the past tense when speaking with him.
Yeah.
And he was born in 2013. He was a little firecracker, just loved to explore things, loved to ask questions. He was so curious and very perceptive. He loved everybody he met. He wanted to adopt everyone. Oh, I love him. He's such a sweetie. And he loved the water. And knowing that, we got him into Mommy and Me swim lessons at a pretty early age. He was 2 years old when we did that. Then we would use a flotation device whenever he was around water to try to make sure that he was safe there. And then when he was 3 years old, the day this happened, I had a sense that something was going to happen. I didn't know what. I just had this kind of dread sense that moms, I guess, get.
Yeah.
And that I'd never had before. And I just chalked it up to my anxiety. And so I just was trying to breathe through it. And I couldn't really think of anything that was going wrong or that could go wrong. And so I remember that day really vividly. The beginning of that afternoon, especially, I was taking Judah up to his nap before we decided we were going to go swim with friends. And I just had this sense that I needed to hold him. And so I held him close to me and just hugged him for a while, and he hugged me back. And then I put him down for his nap like normal, but I just sat in that moment for a minute, and I didn't know why, but I just did.
You never want to ignore a feeling like that.
No. And I wish so much that I had paid attention to the dread feeling that I had as well. And so, after his nap, we went to our friend's apartment, and the kids were going to go swimming. And we were also going to barbecue there at the pool. The men were barbecuing, and we were getting the kids prepped and ready for the pool, and put Judah's puddle jumper on him, his flotation device, and we let them get in the pool. All the other kids knew how to swim. And the kids, most of them got into the deep end of the pool. So we were kind of watching them and also watching Judah. We were sitting right at the side of the pool. And then about half an hour into the swim, Judah got cold. It was in late September. And here in Texas, late September can be pretty warm still, but in the evening it does cool down. And so he was getting cold. And he got himself out of the pool and came over to his dad and asked him for a drink and a towel. His dad gave him some water and then sent him over to me. And I tried to wrap his towel around him. But he had this big puddle jumper on him, and I couldn't get the towel around him without the puddle jumper getting in the way. So I took the puddle jumper off of him.
And just to inform anyone who doesn't know, because I didn't know what a puddle jumper was either. I'm familiar with floaties and life jackets, but this is sort of a combination of the two, right?
Right. Yeah. It's made out of life jacket material, and it has a strap that goes across the chest. And then attached to that are straps that go onto the arms.
Okay.
So it's not inflatable. It is like life jacket material made for young kids.
Okay.
Yeah. So I took it off of him and put his towel around him. And then I sat him right next to me at the side of the pool. And my friend and I started counting heads of the other kids, and just to make sure they were all there and okay and happy. And then I looked down, and Judah was gone. And I had no idea he had left me. I didn't hear it. I didn't see it.
It's like a blink of an eye.
It's so fast, and toddlers are so fast. So I jumped up, and she jumped up, and we started calling for him. I went to a water feature that he was really interested in when we first got there, thinking he may have run over there. It was like a little waterfall, and he wasn't there. And so then we were screaming and looking for him and starting to panic. And then I found him just off the steps of the pool, face down in the water.
That must have been the worst moment of your life, I'm sure.
Yes. And it's the moment that haunts me every day. I still see it every day. When I close my eyes, I can see it.
And you weren't even being negligent. I know I've seen some people's comments, and it's just absurd the way they can judge, but everyone wants to point a finger at something. No one understands this could happen to me. This could happen to anyone.
Absolutely.
That's part of the reason I wanted to do this episode, because it's so important that people don't get complacent and they don't get into that can never happen to me mindset, because that's when it will happen to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's very, very common. I can't tell you the horrible comments that I got after this.
I'm sure.
and, blaming me for this, blaming my husband for this. But what people don't understand is just how quick it can happen.
Right.
Even when, they may get away from you, yes, and that's normal for kids. But if they make it to the water, it only takes 30 seconds for a child his age to drown. It's so fast. And people think because of what happens on TV or in the movies, they think that there's a lot of splashing, screaming, things like that. And there's just not, because all of it happens under the water. So not only is it very fast, but it's also very quiet.
That's another thing that I definitely want to touch on is I've seen a lot of the posters and things in your materials about what drowning looks like. And I don't know that anyone would necessarily know that unless they've experienced it.
Exactly. Because it doesn't look like it does on TV. And that's all people really know of it.
Right. Exactly. I think I was about 8 when I went down a slide in the deep end of the community pool where I grew up. I had no idea how to swim. We grew up having swimming lessons at the lake, but really there was no survival swim, I don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was standing there at the bottom of the pool looking up going, I don't know what to do. And the lifeguard actually came and yanked me out, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But it happens so fast. And even with older kids, you can't always, every second, keep your eye on them. How are you going to do that?
Right. And I always equate it to everyone has those moments where they walk into maybe their kitchen and the pots and pans are all over the place, or they walk into their bathroom and the makeup is smeared on the walls or on the mirror. And it's just that lapse in supervision. It's not a lack of supervision. It is a lapse that we all have, because none of us, and there's even this interesting theory in neurology that says that we have over 11 million pieces of information coming at us at one time. And we can only attend to, at best, 40 to 60 pieces of that information. And so we're going to miss things.
Of course. That's why eyewitness testimony and things like that are so fallible.
Yes.
But I this is something I also am interested in, the neurology of it, because when I did the episode about hot car deaths, I've read the articles in the past and things like that, but I really wanted to educate other people on how much it has to do with the brain. And I imagine the lapse in supervision is, a momentary distraction, just like anything else.
Absolutely. Yep.
And for people to be so awful about it.
Yes. And that's the thing is then that's part of our work too, is to try to help people understand, because part of reducing the drowning numbers is reducing that, it won't happen to me. It only happens to neglectful parents, because it's just not true. I was actually speaking to an officer in a police department where we live and asking them how many drownings they attend and how many of them are actual neglect or even purposeful, and how many are true accidents. And they said over 97% are just accidents. That's just one police department, but I wouldn't be surprised if that correlated through other police departments as well. And so it's one of our jobs is to stop the stigma. And the more we can stop the stigma, then the more parents can talk about it, feel free to talk about it, and be able to warn other parents. And so that's kind of the goal. I was never told anything about water safety. When I would go to pediatrician's appointments, we would talk about, poison dangers. We would talk about car seat safety. We would talk about their shots and their milestones, but we never talked about water safety. And yet drowning is the number one cause of death for children under 5 years old.
It's crazy that that's not something that comes up automatically.
Exactly. So the first thing that we decided to do as a project is to offer pamphlets, information to pediatricians that they can give to their parents. So even if they don't have the time to talk about it in the office, they're still giving them that information that they need to keep their children safe around water.
That's great.
And so we've been able to supply 400 offices in the United States right now.
Wow.
With these pamphlets. So it's one of the things that I was immediately wanted to do.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty upset that this is the number one cause, and yet I never heard about it.
Yeah, and you thought you were doing all of the right things by
Right.
having the flotation device and constant supervision. And
Right.
how would a pediatrician's office get involved with that if they wanted to?
So they just need to get onto our website at judahbrownproject.org.
Okay.
And they just fill out a contact form and let me know that they're interested in that information, and I can get that for them.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's good to know. I'll pause here for a quick sponsor break. So you formed the organization. How soon after you lost Judah in 2016?
Actually, his preschool teacher was the one to actually found it. She's no longer involved in the project, but she was the one that founded it at a time when I was spending every day at the grave, and I would take my kids to school and then go to the grave and just stay there because that's where I felt close to him. And then I would wait until time to go pick them up and then take care of them and be mom to them. And that was just my days for the first year. And then after that, I started to feel stronger and more interested in trying to help with the project. And I found it to be healing for me. I found with grief, from my experience, it's not necessarily time or acceptance that's going to help as much as it is finding meaning. And so I found meaning, and I found in the project a way to continue to try to be mom to him in some way.
Yeah. And just channel that grief into something positive. And you definitely have done that from everything I've seen. It's amazing what you guys have accomplished.
Yeah, thank you. We're trying. And so it started very small with getting the pamphlets in the pediatrician's offices. And then I got involved and we started working together on it. And we expanded to offering scholarships for children whose parents can't afford lessons. Because drowning is the number one cause of death for that young age of children, we really felt like it's not right that not all people have access to that.
Right. It can happen to anyone, regardless of their income level.
Absolutely. And so we started offering scholarships, and to date, we have scholared 205 children to learn how to swim. And one thing about what we do with survival swim that's different than traditional swim lessons. With traditional swim lessons, the kids go to lessons for much longer before they learn their skills. Mm-hmm. So months or years before they learn to competently save themselves in the water. Versus survival swim that can start at a much younger age. They can start at 6 months old, 6 to 7 months old, depending on when they can sit up well on their own.
Okay, so that's when you see the videos online of someone tossing a baby in the pool, which is jarring to see. But at the same time, when you see what that baby is capable of doing, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. And so the actual true instructors won't toss the babies in the pool, but what they do, yes, because I was worried about that too when I first looked into it. And I'm like, I don't know about this. But then I visited instructors and I watched their lessons. And what they are doing is mimicking falls into the water so that if a child, once they've learned their skills and they're competent, then they will practice that mimicking falls. So that's also why they do it in full street clothes too, because clothes can add 20 pounds to someone in the water. A diaper alone can add 5 to 10 pounds to a child in the water if it's fully saturated.
Yeah.
They'll do that so that if the child ever does fall into the pool, then they immediately have that muscle memory to get into that life-saving floating position and be able to breathe until help can come.
Can we talk about the position that the puddle jumpers and life jackets put the child in and how that is so close to the drowning position?
Sure, absolutely. So, like you said, I was thinking that by putting him in the puddle jumper that I was keeping him safe. They said it was U.S. Coast Guard approved. And so I thought if he's in it, then he'll be safe. But what I didn't know is it was teaching him some things that were going to have serious consequences. One of those is that that particular device will put a child in a vertical position in the water, and so an up and down position. And the only way that a child can sustain themselves in the water and get up and get air is in the exact opposite, the horizontal position in the water.
Okay.
So a vertical position will actually help a child drown. It's actually called the drowning position.
Okay. And what does drowning look like so that people can watch for those signs? Because we talked about it being silent. And then what should they look for?
Okay. So what you're going to see is the child will be under the water almost completely. They may have just their face and chin up just above the water, but it'll be bobbing up and down. Mm-hmm. And then if you were to look under the water, you would see them bicycling their arms and legs almost like they're climbing a ladder. And they're going to be vertical in the water. They're not going to be able to talk or scream or cry or ask for help because they're just trying to get up to get air.
Okay.
And so that's what it looks like. And so if that happens, they need immediate help.
That is also good to know. Do you have any information on dry drowning at all?
I do. It's a term that we're trying not to use. And
Okay.
basically because it's a misnomer. It's not actually dry drowning. Every drowning is a wet drowning. But basically what it is kids sometimes will get too much water into their lungs, but not enough to completely disrupt their lung function in that moment. But it is enough to start to kind of degrade the lining of the lungs.
Okay. So they look fine.
They look fine for a little while. They may be coughing a bit, and that's about it. But then you'll notice in the next minutes to the next few hours that they will be starting to get lethargic. They will be coughing a lot. They may be having trouble breathing. They may complain that their chest hurts. They may be throwing up. And if any of those things are happening, they need to go to the emergency room right away because it does mean that there's probably water in the lungs. Now, I know that there's a rumor that this won't show up for days, and that's not true. If this shows up, it's going to show up within minutes to hours after the exposure to the water.
Okay. What do they call it now instead of dry drowning? What's a better?
They actually just call it non-fatal drowning.
Okay.
So there's really only two types. And the reason that that's so important is because, the hospital has to code everyone who comes in as what they came in with. And if a child does die from a drowning, it's important that it's coded as a drowning because otherwise it skews our statistics and then it makes it hard for us to advocate to get this to stop.
Okay. So they have to code it as a drowning, whether it happened immediately or later.
Yes.
And how many kids drown in the U.S. per year? Do you have those stats?
Yeah. So it's usually around 800 per year in the U.S. The states that lead in the U.S. are typically Florida and then Texas, which is where I am. This year, we may be actually leading the nation. I'm not sure. We're at 97 fatal child drownings in Texas this year. So it's
just this year.
Just this year. And to put that into perspective, 800 children is the equivalent to 11 school buses full of kids.
That's, I don't want to say ridiculous, but that's avoidable.
Absolutely avoidable. Yep.
It really is a huge problem that you just do not hear enough about. And I was looking through some of the faces and names that you've had out there on your site. And I love that you post for each of their birthdays and their anniversaries.
Yeah. That was another thing. We expanded into having a bereavement program because we saw the need for these parents to have community.
Yeah.
And also to have supports and for us to be able to share the resources that we had with them and that we gather from other organizations with them. And then we will often send them little gifts in the mail just to let them know that their child is still remembered. Because one of the things that I know as a mom who's lost a child is that one of the scariest things in the world is that your child will be forgotten and that people will not remember that they existed.
Yeah.
And so we didn't want that to happen. And that's why we created our bereavement program. And we've been able to serve 172 families.
Wow.
Through that program at this time. And it's always growing. We post for their birthdays and their anniversary dates because we know those are hard for the families. And when we have events, we have little buckets with their names on them. And we ask people to just write little notes to them and put them in the buckets. And then we'll gather them and we'll send them to their parents.
Oh, I love that. That's so sweet. So the bereavement program, is that more of a new addition?
We started that program probably about a year after.
Oh, okay.
After we started. We started in 2017.
Okay. And what other initiatives do you guys have? So you had the documentation, sending that off to pediatricians' offices, and you've got the scholarships for education. And I saw that, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the little guy's name. His mom, Heaven, is running some of your...
She's running our education program. She's amazing.
Bodhi.
Yeah, Bodhi's mama.
Time for another word from my sponsors.
I'm a teacher. So one of the things I really felt strongly about is we've got to teach these kids to help themselves stay safe. So I created curriculum for pre-K all the way up through high school.
Oh, good.
On water safety. And so depending on the age, they will learn different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so pre-K kids will learn float on your back, and they'll learn don't go to the water without mom and dad. Whereas high school, there's a lot of lifeguards in high school. There's a lot of people babysitting. And so we more talk about, yes, how do you keep yourself safe around water, but also how do you keep the kids that you're taking care of safe around water?
Good.
And so there's more of an adult nature to that one.
I was surprised to learn that even the older kids are at risk in other certain circumstances. When I saw Andy Snook's story, I had just tears pouring out of my face because he was 13 and you would never think that they'd get into a situation like that.
Right. And they just get tired or they don't have the ability they think they have. And
overconfidence with kids is common.
Yes. And then peer pressure, you add that to it. So yeah, the second highest risk category for drowning is ages 14 to 19.
Really?
Yes. And boys across the spectrum are 3 times more likely to drown than girls.
Okay. Just the adventurousness, I guess.
Yeah, there's lots of theories around that. The one that I kind of suspect and don't know is that boys are often more socialized to take risks, adventure, explore, and girls are more likely to be socialized to be cautious, be careful. And then also boys tend to take more of their cues from their peers, whereas girls tend to take more of their cues from their parents. So I think maybe it's a combination of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the things I think they're studying, try to figure that out. And then the older the child, the more likely it is that it's going to be open water that they're going to drown in. So from birth to a year, it's most likely going to happen in a bathtub. From 1 year to 5 years, it's most likely in a pool.
Okay.
After that, it's open water.
Lakes and things like that.
Yep. Basically like uncontrolled water. So lakes, rivers, oceans, ponds.
That's really good to know. How can we protect children from drowning? What tips would you give people on how to protect kids from that?
Yeah. So what we recommend is layers of protection. So putting all layers in place. And I like to kind of explain it like Swiss cheese. So if you think of Swiss cheese, each piece has holes in it. So think of each piece as a layer of protection. They all have holes in them where the kids can get around it or something can go wrong and they can still drown. But if you start stacking one layer on top of the other, it starts to fill the holes of the layer before it to where it makes it much less likely that the children will drown. So we recommend the layers and the layers are number 1, supervision. For kids who can swim, we recommend a water watcher, someone who's designated to only watch the children and do nothing else but watch the children. And everyone knows that's the water watcher. So I'm not going to talk to them. They're not going to do anything else but watch the kids.
Okay.
And then you switch water watchers every 15 minutes, kind of like you do with lifeguards. You know, they switch and go on the stand every 10 minutes or so.
Okay. Just to keep them fresh.
Fresh. Yeah. Because our attention spans can wander and these kids need constant supervision. So, and then if the child can't swim, then we recommend one-on-one touch supervision with them. So always being within an arm's reach of them at all times in or around the water. So for me, I should have been in the water with Judah, within arm's reach of him. I shouldn't have been relying on the flotation device. Don't use flotation devices in the pools. Use one-on-one touch supervision instead, because the other thing that flotation devices do, not just put the kids vertical in the water and teach them that muscle memory so that if they don't have the device on, then they jump into the pool and they'll automatically go in that position. But they also teach them a false sense of safety, which means that the child, especially at that young age, they don't have the cognitive ability to understand that, hey, it's the device keeping me up and not my own ability. And so when it's off of them, they think I can always swim when I go into the water. So if I go in the water now, I'll be able to swim.
Yeah.
And they go in without their devices on, and then that's when they drown. So no flotation devices in pools. They were actually never made or meant for pools. The U.S. Coast Guard does not even approve any flotation devices for use in pools. They don't even evaluate them for use in pools.
So the Coast Guard does approve the puddle jumper, but it's more of a life-saving device than
Correct. Yeah.
A swimming aid. Okay. So basically, what I wanted to really make sure to drive home here is that you're not demonizing the company that makes puddle jumpers, or you're not blaming the device for anything.
No.
But you are pointing out that here's why it's dangerous to teach them to swim while wearing this, or to rely on this to save them rather than these other layers.
Right. Exactly. So you should only use devices that are Coast Guard approved, and only use them in open water. Because open water is not a place where children are typically going to be swimming. Open water is a place where they'll be boating, recreating, and it's very unpredictable. Waves and currents can take them out into the ocean. And so they need a device that can help them in that instance, because even the best swimmers would need a device in that instance. So they are made for open water, and really only as a safety device, just in case you get in trouble, but not as a swim aid. And so that's the difference between using them in open water and using them in a pool setting. In a pool, really, it's important that the child learns what their own body can and can't do in the water, so that they develop a healthy respect for it. And then they won't go back to it if they happen to have a moment in time where your attention is on another child or on getting lunch ready for your kids. So that's important. And then the next layer is to get barriers around the pool. So if you have a pool, using a pool safety fence is important.
Whether you have kids or not.
Yes, whether you have kids or not. Yes. So that's important, that people need to realize, hey, even if you don't have kids, you may have grandkids, or your neighbors may have kids, or they may have grandkids. And if the kids see that pool, they're drawn to it.
Kids wander, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Perimeter fences that we all have around our yards, they don't work. Kids can climb those.
Okay.
So it's super important to have an actual safety fence. They're mesh-sided fences that kids can't climb.
Oh, so they're not chain link.
No, because they can climb those. Yeah.
Okay.
And not wrought iron. You want to use the mesh safety fences. Lifesaver pool fences is a great place to go for those. And then you want to take out any like furniture that they might be able to push against the fence and try to climb up that way.
Right.
And then you want to put alarms and locks on all doors and windows leading to the water. And we recommend that you have different alarms than what your house alarm might be.
Okay.
So that you know immediately if someone's trying to access the outside towards the water.
Got it. Okay. And are there alarms that will go off when someone hits the surface of the water?
There are, yes. Most of them are unreliable, though, just because they will go off even if a leaf hits the water. And
oh my gosh.
And so the problem is that parents will get sick of checking, and then it's just a leaf, or it's a branch, or it's a squirrel, and so they will stop checking. And then what if that time that they needed to check, they didn't?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, time for another quick sponsor break.
After the barriers layer, then we want to make sure the kids know how to swim. So if your child does not know how to swim and they're under the age of 6 years old, survival swim lessons is what we recommend. Because what they'll do is a child under 1 year old, they will teach them and get it in their muscle memory that if they were ever to fall into the water, clothes on or a swimsuit on, that they will be able to get up on their backs, float, and breathe. They've clocked these kids being able to stay in that position for 5 minutes or over.
Wow.
So,
and these are little guys.
These are little guys, and they can do this. And most children that go missing are found within 5 minutes. So you want to give them that ability to get into a breathing position.
Yeah.
And so that's what survival swim will do. And then when they turn 1, they start teaching them a swim, float, swim sequence to where they get up on their backs, they get that air they need, and then they flip over to their tummies, and then they'll propel themselves through the water however they can. And then when they need air, they flip back up onto their backs, and they keep doing that sequence until they can get themselves to the exit of the pool and get themselves out of the pool, which they're also taught how to do that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we feel like the key thing is that is the age group that's most at risk for drowning. And those are the skills that they can learn to save themselves. Most kids under the age of 6 years old are not able to learn the skills they need with traditional swim strokes to be able to save themselves in a water emergency. at that age. So it's important that we teach them the skills they absolutely can learn at a very young age so that if it does happen, then they have a chance at saving themselves. And so then after the age of 6, we recommend traditional lessons with an emphasis on safety.
Yeah, respect for the water is super important. Obviously, no running on the
right.
slippery surfaces.
Yeah, no running. Don't go to the water without parents. And that's really key. Make sure someone is watching you. We tell the kids that when we go into the schools, we say, if mom's on the phone, what do you do? And then they're like, go tell mom, please watch me. And we've had kids actually do that and come back and report to us that they did that.
Oh, good. It's sticking.
It is sticking. Yeah. I had one child who the mom contacted me after I had been in that child's class teaching these lessons. And she said, my child came home with these layers of protection and she made me put them on the refrigerator.
Oh, good.
I was like, that's awesome. And they get really, really eager to do it. So it was amazing. It's just nice to hear feedback to know that these kids are listening and they're really wanting to do it. So then the next layer is to learn CPR. So important because a drowning is a brain injury related to lack of oxygen.
Right.
So the reason kids die is because their brains are starved of oxygen for too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It have lifelong effects if they do survive.
If they do survive. Yep. And if a child is in the water for more than 5 minutes without oxygen, then it's very likely they won't survive. And if they do, they will be dependent on machines for the rest of their life, and they will not have a lot of the functioning that they had before.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the same as with head injuries, because I've talked about a whole lot of those. So it's pretty much the same mechanism as far as oxygen deprivation.
Yes, it's a brain injury due to lack of oxygen. It's actually called an anoxic brain injury. So,
okay,
yeah.
As opposed to traumatic. Right. Okay.
Yes. And so CPR is so important. And when you do CPR, the key thing to remember with a drowning victim is oxygen. You've got to get those breaths in. This is not a situation where you can do compression only CPR.
Okay.
They absolutely need that oxygen.
There's probably water in the lungs at that point, or?
There is, yeah, likely. But, there's not as much as you think would be in the lungs when they drown.
It doesn't take a lot.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Because what it's doing is it's destroying the surfactant in the lungs, which is the lining of the lungs that allows the oxygen to come in and then oxygenate our blood.
Okay. And that's why getting to the doctor when there has been a near drowning experience is also so important.
Absolutely. Yep. Because they've got to treat that right away. And so those are the layers of protection.
Okay.
And we just recommend that everybody use every layer and not skip any. It's not enough to just use supervision or just use barriers or just use the swimming lessons. All of it's required.
Okay. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
How did you deal with, especially at the beginning, I'm sure you're a little more inoculated against it now, but how did you deal with people pointing fingers squarely at you and your husband? And how do you help the other parents who are bereaved get through all of that?
Yeah. At first, I didn't deal with it well. I already blamed myself for it. And so they just fed into that. And I had to learn to not read the comments. Whenever I would post, I had to just stop reading them. I had to have someone else read them for me and just not tell me what they say.
Yeah.
Because it would destroy me for a week every time I would read one. I was also in counseling for quite a long time. And so are my kids and my husband. And so that helped too, to process through it. I still struggle with blaming myself. And I think that's something that I will probably struggle with the rest of my life. But I also know not to listen to these people. And I think educating yourself helps. Knowing what I know now, I know that it's not something that I knowingly did wrong,
Right.
It was an accident and it can happen to the very best parents. So reminding yourself of that whenever this happens to the parents that we serve, we support them. We remind them of this. We're there for them. We listen to them and we recommend counseling and we just kind of wrap around them as a community.
That's awesome.
So that they understand this wasn't your fault.
There's going to be people who say awful things no matter what happens, but
yeah,
they need that support. And I'm sure it's a unfortunately growing community, but I'm sure that actually does help.
It is. And I think it's actually helped people to be brave enough to share their stories.
Yeah.
And in sharing their stories, families start to realize, oh my gosh, this is happening to a lot of people. Maybe it can happen to me. And then they're more willing to take the precautions that they should. When we first started, and I first started posting information on Facebook about water safety, I would get a lot of those comments. And I've noticed over the years a trend to where people are not doing that anymore so much. They are now listening.
That's excellent.
Yeah. So that's encouraging too. And just to know that you've got this community behind you if you do have a bad day and you do start to struggle with the blame, that they're going to be there for you.
Yeah, it's got to be beyond frustrating, but also disheartening when you're in that mindset already. And someone just has to be to blame for everything. So,
yeah.
But you're not out there playing yourself as a victim or however else people were wording it.
No.
You are doing something about it and you're helping to protect other kids. It's really inspiring what you're doing.
I just don't want any other child to have this happen. And I don't want any other parent to have to face this and live this life. And so my main message really is just learn from my mistakes and don't do them yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not out here doing this because I want to do it. It's not easy to have to relive this constantly.
Sure.
But I'm doing it because I care and I don't want these kids dying. And then this is completely preventable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the important thing to know.
Yeah. It just should never happen. But just so few parents know about it. And that's my drive, is how many parents can I teach? How can I get to as many parents as possible and get this information to them?
Right. Because the more people you can tell, the more people will start to believe and the more people will start to understand, and then they'll pass it on. And
exactly.
It's like a snowball effect, which this is the good kind.
Yes. Yes. And I always look to the Mothers Against Drunk Driving movement and how that changed so much and made so much safer for kids. And I think, why can't we do that with water safety?
Exactly.
Let's do that with water safety. It was just a bunch of moms getting together and then just creating a movement. So that's what I hope will happen with water safety.
I'll pause here for one final sponsor break. And it does seem like there are people out there doing that kind of work. So who does your organization work with, like the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance?
Yes, we work with them. We also work with IPSA, which is the Independent Pool and Spa Professionals.
Okay.
And so the Pool and Hot Tub Association are an association of pool builders. And then IPSA is an association of pool service companies. We work very, very closely with them, especially in the Houston area, which is where we are. But we do work nationally as well. And then we also work with the National Drowning Prevention Alliance.
Okay.
And we work with a lot of different family foundations.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of us out there in various different states. And so if, you don't have access to Judah Brown Project, then you've got access to maybe Team Kareem out in Florida, or you've got Live Like Logan, or various different organizations all over the country. I mean, we're all working together to do this work together and to stop this from happening.
That's awesome. It makes it so much bigger and seems so much more powerful.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It takes a village, right? It takes all of us working together. And that's what I tell people is, don't think that you're too small. Everybody has a voice. And if we all use our voices together, that's when it's loud. And that's when we can change things.
And yours has gone far and wide. And you've been on Good Morning America and other media quite a bit. And was that more at the beginning, or do you continue to do those sorts of things?
It's a continual thing. It just kind of happens when it happens. They'll see a post or they'll hear of us somehow and then contact us and we'll do their media. We tend to do a lot of local media every year. And then sometimes we'll get national attention as well.
Okay.
And so, if we can't do it, then we recommend another organization who can do it. Or if they can't do it, they'll recommend us, just to make sure that the information is covered.
Yeah, that's how I found you. I just saw a post and it never occurred to me, how important that would be to think about and put a lot of thought into, not just passing thought. So you have all of those education programs, scholarships, bereavement program. You do fundraising as well. Do you want to talk about your gala in March?
Yeah, we're excited to have our second annual gala. It's called the Ripples of Hope, and it is in March in the Houston area. If anyone is interested in attending, or if anyone is interested in sponsoring it in some way, we would love that. You can just go to our website, and there's a place there for the gala, and you just click on that and you can get all the information you need. But it's March 8th, and we're excited to be able to do this so that we can raise the money that we need to give these scholarships and this education.
That's fantastic. And there's also training programs on your website. And those are for what type of training?
So those are for the out of water training. So when COVID hit, before that, we were just doing in-person trainings. So it kind of limited us to the Houston area. And we were doing well with that. We were in 7 school districts in the Houston area.
Wow.
But I'd always wanted to expand. And then COVID hit and it sort of forced our hand because we couldn't go into the schools anymore. And so we brought all of our curriculum and put it online. And I made videos of it so that it's taught in such a way that teachers really just have to press play and they don't have to teach it themselves. And they don't have to know much about water safety to be able to use it. All they need to do is press play and then use the materials that we also provide. So we provide printables for the kids to be able to use to reinforce the lessons. And it's free. So all they need to do is go on the website and fill out our form. And then we'll send them the links to the trainings that they want to use. A lot of states have water safety training as part of the curriculum that their teachers are required to use every year. And Texas is one of those. We have in our what's called TEKS, which is Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. It's all the things that teachers are meant to teach every year. And drowning prevention, water safety is part of that. And it falls under the PE TEKS.
Okay.
So we talk to PE teachers and counselors at schools, and we get that in that way. Even moms and dads could use the curriculum at home with their own kids. Or they could go to their school counselor and say, hey, did you know that drowning is the number one cause of death for these kids? Maybe we should offer this, and here's a resource for it. And we still do offer in-person trainings for school districts that are close to us.
That's a really great program, I think, getting right in there and talking to the kids.
And you can reach so many kids at one time. One school is 800 children.
Right, exactly. Do you usually do one kind of assembly or go into individual classrooms, or how would you?
Yeah. So what we do is we set up in the PE class, and then the kids will cycle through their PE classes. And as the different grade levels come in, we'll teach to that grade level. So we might have almost 75 to 100 kids, maybe 125 kids in the gym at one time. And we do interactive games and things to reinforce the lessons that they learn so they'll remember them. And, for the little ones, it's a 10-minute. So preschool, it's like 10 minutes. For the kinder through second grade, it's about 20 minutes. And then it just moves up from there based on their age and developmental levels.
And that's great that it's tailored to their grade level.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to make sure of that so that the older ones don't get bored and the younger ones don't lose what we're trying to teach them, because we're teaching to maybe 3rd or 4th graders.
Yeah.
Instead of them. So there's that as well. And that's one of my favorite programs. I really love it. I feel like it makes a big impact.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, it has to. The whole thing that you're doing, the whole Judah Brown project, it's huge. It's the undertaking of a lifetime, but I'm sure it helps you keep Judah's memory alive.
Absolutely.
What else do you do as a family to remember him and keep his memory alive for you guys?
Yeah, we're always talking about him. We have all adopted Judah sayings, and so we will use Judah sayings all the time. For instance, he liked chocolate, but he couldn't say it right, so he'd say chocolate. And so anytime any of us are eating chocolate, see, I'm automatically saying it. We'll say chocolate instead of chocolate. And then, one of my kids will be dancing or something, and it'll remind me of Judah, and I'll be like, oh, you're dancing like Judah. Or Judah would like that. And then we'll have like special things that we do. My husband and I deal with our grief differently. And so for Judah's birthday, he needs to be alone. because he's a very much a caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so if anyone else is around, he just tries to caretake them and isn't able to grieve himself. And so he will kind of isolate and be by himself so that he can grieve. And then I need to celebrate Judah's birthday. And so we have a fundraiser that we do every year on his birthday in honor of him. And he loved ice cream. So we go to an ice cream shop and we pass out water safety information. And also we have an agreement with that ice cream shop where they will give a certain percentage back to Judah Brown Project for anyone who comes and gets ice cream that day.
Oh, nice.
So we do that. And then around Christmas time, and I'm actually going to be putting this on my Facebook page soon, I'll ask for people to send notes to Judah so that we can fill his stocking. And so that on Christmas Day, we're able to sit as a family and read them together. That's been so good for us. And then there's little things like when I decorate for Christmas, I'll put little Judah things out, things I know he would have loved. He loved Paw Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 2 of his favorite Paw Patrol characters, and they always go out on our lawn every Christmas. And so there's just lots of ways like that we remember him and honor him. And then I just get to say his name every day. It's in the project. So I get to say his name. And so I'm always thinking of him.
He'll never be forgotten, and you're instrumental in that. So that's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like I carry his legacy, and I don't want that to ever be dimmed. So
you're doing a fantastic job of that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. Like I said, I didn't know how important it was to talk about this until I came across that post. And I've raised, my kids are 17 and 20, but
yeah,
never occurred to me as important as it was.
I know. Yeah. And that's how it is. It's weird because it's one of those, yeah, that makes sense. But it's also one of those things it doesn't occur to people.
Yeah, of course.
Really. It didn't to me either.
Right. I'm sure. And you were right there, and your husband was right there, and the kids were there.
Yeah. Yeah. I was within 5 feet of him the whole time.
That's crazy. Yeah. I hope that people will come to understand it. It doesn't just happen to bad parents. That's the thing that really want to drill home.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Please know that it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. I was one of those moms who would listen to the pediatrician, whatever they told me to do, I would do. I would do everything his preschool teacher told me to do. I read books on how best to raise my kids.
Yeah.
I sought advice. I wasn't one of these absent moms, and it still happened.
Right.
So it can happen to anyone.
Well, thank you for teaching people about that. And I'm sorry you have to use such a traumatic personal experience to do it, but you're definitely doing excellent work in Judah's name.
Thank you.
Huge thanks to Christi for taking the time to talk to me about this crucial subject and for letting us know more about her sweet boy. I'll include links for resources in today's show notes, and as always, there will be a photo album for this episode posted soon on Facebook. That's it for this episode. Join me next time for another child's story. If you like the show, please follow or subscribe to Suffer the Little Children on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Spreaker, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast listening app. And please leave me a 5-star rating and a positive review on your favorite podcast platform. Visit the website at sufferthelittlechildrenpod.com. You can support the show by visiting patreon.com/stlcpod, where you can become a patron for rewards ranging from a shout-out by name on the show to bonus content and exclusive gifts. You can also support the show at ko-fi.com/stlcpod. Follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Suffer the Little Children Pod and on TikTok at STLCpod. View photos related to today's episode on Facebook. This podcast is researched, written, hosted, edited, and produced by Laine. Intro theme music is by Dream Note Music, and all music for the show is licensed from audiojungle.net. For more information about preventing or reporting child abuse, visit childhelp.org or call your area's child abuse hotline. And remember, if you see something, say something.